Seeing the tiny crease on her daughter's finger in the morgue, the mother suddenly questions the reality of death. How did that tiny detail save 2 lives by confronting a tremendous force? Today, you will witness this miraculous event through this story. Stay with us until the end and savor this moment. That morning was hotter than usual in Los Angeles. Isabel Montoya smoothed her hair with her fingers, her face tired, her eyes hiding sleepless nights. 6 months away, 6 months of meetings, contracts, luxury hotels, endless dinners, but none of that mattered now. She just wanted to get home, smell her daughter, hear her laughter echoing through the living room. That's what she lived for Renata. The car stopped in front of the mansion's large gate. She didn't even wait for the driver. She got out, grabbed her bag, and before ringing the bell, she noticed it. The side gate that led directly to the back garden. It was ajar, just a small crack, but enough to send a chill down her spine. "Hey," she muttered, frowning. Isabel slowly pushed the iron gate, which creaked softly. The garden was too quiet, not even the barking of the dogs that always ran around there. She looked around. No employees, no movement. The thin heel of her sandal made a sharp noise on the stone floor. She quickened her pace, crossed the garden, climbed the 2 steps to the terrace, and opened the front door. She didn't have a key. It was unlocked. She called out in a louder voice, "Renata, it's me. Renata, I'm here." Nothing. The air inside was heavy, hot, with a strange smell, a mixture of old perfume and something else, more stagnant. She dropped her bag on the floor without realizing it and walked to the center of the room. Her heart was pounding in her neck. The windows were closed, the curtains half open. Sunlight streamed in through thin rays, illuminating particles in the air. It was as if no one had lived there for days, maybe longer. Isabel turned slowly, facing the silence. Her cell phone vibrated in her bag, but she didn't answer. Something wasn't right, and it wasn't just the gate. She called again. "Renata, where are you, my love?" The echo of her own voice was all she heard. She narrowed her eyes, swallowed hard, and thought, something's not right here. She went to the living room and took a step inside. The door closed behind her with a loud bang. The sound echoed throughout the house as if it were empty. She looked around and froze. The living room was destroyed. On the light-colored carpet, bottles were scattered, some still full of liquid, others broken, the glass reflecting the sunlight. Glasses lay on the floor, clothes were strewn about, jackets, blouses, even a pair of panties near the stairs. A sofa was overturned, cushions were on the floor, the lamp broken on its side. One of her favorite paintings, the one from her trip to Paris with Renata when she was 11, was crooked on the wall, about to fall. Isabel couldn't move. She felt the floor shaking, her legs weak. "What happened here?" she whispered, trying to understand. She took 2 steps, accidentally kicking a bottle that rolled and hit the wall. The sound made her jump. Her heart was racing, as if it were about to explode. Her eyes tried to take everything in, but they couldn't handle it all. There was a sticky puddle near the sofa. Something spilled. Wine. Blood. She didn't know. The smell was strong, heavy, a mixture of alcohol, cigarettes, cheap perfume, and something else. Something that couldn't be described, but that turned her stomach. She put her hand over her mouth to stifle a moan. She tried calling again. "Renata, are you there, my love? Talk to me." Nothing. A chill ran up the back of her neck. This mess was not from a normal night. It was not a normal party. Something was wrong here. Very wrong. It was as if someone had broken in, or as if something horrible had happened in there. She walked slowly to the armchair by the fireplace. The blanket that was always folded there was on the floor, dirty. A single high-heeled shoe was turned upside down, and there was a dark stain on the arm of the chair. Isabel touched it with 2 fingers and recoiled. It was sticky. Whatever had happened in that house was no small matter. She took a deep breath. She tried to breathe through her teeth, but she choked. Her eyes filled with tears, not just from the shock, but because something inside her was breaking. "My God," she whispered, not knowing if she was asking for help or forgiveness. "Renata, answer me, please. It's me, daughter. It's Mom." Suddenly, she began to walk quickly. She crossed the living room, stumbling over broken glass and glasses, kicking clothes along the way. With each step, her heart beat faster. She reached the stairs and ran up them, holding tightly to the handrail. "Renata!" The echo of her cry was heard throughout the house. She opened the first door on the right. The guest room, empty. The blankets were still neatly folded, as if no one had been in there for weeks. She ran to the second door. The office, messy, but also empty. "My love, please answer me." Her voice was now hoarse, choked with tears. She wasn't blinking anymore. Her eyes were fixed, looking at every corner, every shadow. Sweat was running down her forehead. She opened another door. Nothing. Hallway. Silence. Only her footsteps could be heard on the wood. Her breathing was getting shorter and shorter. She reached her daughter's door and paused with her hand on the knob. Her heart was beating so hard, it felt like a drum inside her chest. She opened it slowly. The room was dark, the curtains closed, and the smell inside was worse. Much worse. Isabel took a step back, raised her arm, and covered her nose. Oh God. That mixture was rotten, like something decomposed, something dead, food thrown away, an animal she didn't know, but it was a smell that hurt inside. She turned on the light. The bulb flickered twice before coming on properly, and then she saw it. The sheet was all wrinkled. The pillow was on the floor. A chair was knocked over in a corner. The walls had strange marks on them, as if someone had dragged their dirty fingers across them. There was a glass with dried lipstick on the rim, a single flip-flop next to the bed, and emptiness. That room had always smelled of her daughter's shampoo, her lotion, her life. Now it was as if it no longer belonged to anyone. Isabel took 2 staggering steps inside. She sat on the edge of the bed with her hands shaking, her gaze lost. "Where are you, daughter?" Her voice came out almost soundless, like a tired sigh. She looked around trying to find some clue or something, but all she found was that thick silence, full of fear, full of pain, and that horrible feeling that maybe, just maybe, it was already too late. Sitting on the edge of her daughter's messy bed, Isabel grabbed her cell phone with trembling hands. Her fingers could barely touch the screen. She took a deep breath, trying to calm down. She tapped Renata's name on the screen. She waited. It rang once, twice, 3 times, until an electronic voice broke the silence. "This number is not available." She stared at the screen as if it didn't make sense. She tried again. "No, no, Renata, please," she whispered softly, as if her daughter could hear her from there. She pressed the recent calls button and swiped her finger up. The last call between them was a week ago, a short video call. Renata looked strange, but she said she was fine. Now her number no longer existed. "What did you do, daughter? What happened?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Then she decided to look for someone else, someone who knew where her daughter was. She opened the list of contacts on her phone. She started looking at the names, but nothing made sense to her. Little Witch, Crazy Dog, Lolly Lolly, Smoke, Drika Polvora, Chino X, all nicknames. People she had never heard of. No family names, no clear references, just nicknames, abbreviations, emojis instead of surnames. It was as if Renata had created a secret network beyond her mother's reach. She dialed a number that said Princess of Chaos. It rang and then cut off. She called another voicemail. Another one was off, another one was busy. She tried 2 more. Nothing. With each attempt, her anxiety increased. Her breathing became shorter. The cell phone fell from her hand and landed on the bed. Isabel covered her face with her hands, squeezing her eyes shut tightly. "My girl, what did you do with your life? Why didn't you talk to me?" The room, the silence or the smells, the strange names, the number out of service. Everything formed a void inside her, a dark hole with no bottom. Her daughter was missing, and she was there, surrounded by signs she couldn't understand, and worst of all, completely alone. With her heart tight, Isabel left Renata's room. She walked slowly, as if her body weighed more. The silence continued throughout the house, but inside, the noise was unbearable. Mixed thoughts, meaningless memories, fear pounding hard. She went down the stairs carefully, looking from side to side, as if she expected her daughter to come out from some corner, smiling, saying it was all a misunderstanding. But it didn't happen. The kitchen was at the back. It had always been their favorite place. They drank coffee there together. where Renata made brigadeiro in the early hours of the morning and invented recipes just to make her laugh. It was where Isabel felt most like a mother. But that day, she didn't push the door open slowly. Natural light from the window illuminated the room. Everything seemed normal at first glance, but there was something strange in the air, a bitter smell that was too sweet and made her nauseous. She took 2 steps inside, and then she saw it. On the counter was a glass, thick and heavy, with a little dark liquid inside. It wasn't wine or soda. It was something different, thick, almost black, and there were marks on the rim of the glass, as if someone had drunk or drooled there. Isabel approached, bent down slowly, touched the glass with her fingertips. It was sticky. She immediately withdrew her hand, feeling nauseous, her stomach churning. Then, on the floor, almost hidden under the furniture, she saw the syringe, a used syringe, the needle cap thrown aside, the plastic body half dirty with a little liquid inside, the same dark color as the glass. Isabel froze. The world seemed to stop. The air became heavy. Her ears rang. She didn't know exactly what that meant, but she knew it wasn't good. She knew that object there was the symbol of something she never wanted to imagine, never wanted to see. "No, it can't be," she whispered, her voice trembling. She leaned on the sink, gripping the marble tightly, her eyes filled with tears, her head spinning, her heart beating erratically. That kitchen was no longer the safe place it used to be, no longer smelling of cake and love. It had the bitter taste of truth coming, and Isabel wasn't ready for that. Isabel returned to her daughter's room as if she were carrying the whole world on her back. The ugly smell was still in the air, but now it was as if she didn't even notice it. She needed to understand. She needed to find an answer. She went to the dresser. She opened the drawer slowly. Nothing. She looked on the shelves, on the floor. Then she saw something between the mattress and the wall. A light blue notebook, half folded with worn edges. She picked it up carefully. It was light, but in Isabel's hands it weighed a ton. She sat on the edge of the bed and opened it. On the first page was a hand-drawn picture, a simple baby with childlike lines, a round face, closed eyes, a pacifier, and next to it, a small heart drawn in red pencil, with writing in a girl's handwriting just below. "I'll wait for you." Isabel froze, turned the page slowly. Another drawing, this time a round belly and a hand on it. The caption read, "I'm not going to do this alone." She put her hand to her mouth. Her heart raced. The words screamed off the page. "I'll wait for you. I'm not going to do this alone." She turned another page, small, scattered phrases, like random thoughts. "I don't know how. I didn't want to. I wanted to tell you, but you were always far away." The words danced before her eyes. The image of her daughter came back to her with force, her gaze down at her cell phone, her cold voice on video, the conversation from a week ago. "Hi, Mom. Everything's fine. I'm just tired, but happy that you're coming," Renata had said, looking away without really smiling. "Is everything okay there?" Isabel asked, reviewing the meeting papers as she spoke. "Yes. I can't wait for you to get here." Now those words sounded different. They were a plea, a hidden cry, and she didn't hear it. Or worse, she heard it, but didn't want to understand. Isabel pressed the notebook to her chest. Her daughter's scent still clung to the paper. The room was now a portrait of the distance between them, not in body, but in soul. There she cried softly, like someone crying for forgiveness, because for the first time she understood. Renata had been talking all along, only silently, only through her drawings, and she hadn't heard her. Isabel got up from the bed, as if someone had hit her. The notebook slipped from her hands and fell to the floor, open with the drawings facing up, but she didn't turn around. She couldn't breathe. Her heart was beating in her neck. The floor seemed to be moving away from her feet. She stumbled out of the room. She leaned against the wall in the hallway. Her cell phone was in her hand. She didn't even think about it. She dialed the number of the house security chief, Gilberto. It rang twice. He answered in a sleepy voice. "Mrs. Isabel Gilberto, where is everyone? Why is the house empty? Where is the team?" Her voice came out loud, fast, almost desperate. On the other end, there was silence for a second. Then the answer came, uncertainly. "Mrs. Isabel, Renata told us yesterday afternoon to take the day off, that everything was fine, that she wanted to be alone, and that we should also leave the kitchen and cleaning staff free. Everyone left. She asked for it herself. Isabel felt a chill. She fired everyone. Are you sure? Yes, ma'am. I still asked her if she was sure. She said she just wanted to rest, that she was tired and wanted silence. Isabel leaned her back against the wall. The hand holding the cell phone began to shake. The world was spinning, and after that, no one else saw her. No one. No, ma'am. I thought everything was fine. Forgive me. She hung up without saying anything else. The phone fell to the floor. She walked to the living room and looked around. Now everything made sense. The open gate, the empty house, the silence, no one to see, no one to help. Renata had isolated herself and no one noticed. Panic hit her like a wave. She sat on the floor, breathing heavily, her eyes wide open, her fingers clenching her own leg, as if she were about to faint. In her head, there was only one thought. She was asking for help, and I didn't see it. The silence in the house, which had been strange before, was now deafening. Isabel felt her daughter's absence like a stab in the heart. The loneliness of the place was her daughter's loneliness, screaming in her face. And she, powerful, rich, full of contacts, didn't know where her daughter was, didn't know what had happened, didn't even know where to start. There, on the floor of her own living room, Isabel Montoya cried for the first time, as if the world were falling apart, because perhaps it was. The cell phone rang, the screen trembling in her hand. It was an unknown number with a Los Angeles area code. Isabel answered with a broken voice. Hello. On the other end, a serious, direct male voice. Mrs. Isabel Montoya, we are calling from the Los Angeles City Medical Examiner's office. You are listed as the emergency contact for a young woman named Renata Montoya. We found a body with documents in her name. We need you to come in to make a formal identification. Silence. Isabel didn't respond. Ma'am, can you hear me? Yes, she could hear, but she couldn't speak. Her breath caught in her throat. The noise of the refrigerator in the kitchen sounded too loud. Time seemed to stand still. Ms. Isabel, is that my daughter? She asked in a whisper. We can't confirm that without the identification. That's why we're asking you to come as soon as possible. She hung up without saying another word. The cell phone fell to the floor for the second time that day. She stood still for a few seconds, her eyes unblinking, her hand covering her mouth. Her soul was shattered. No, God, please no, she murmured as if repeating it could prevent it from being true. She ran to her room, grabbed her bag and keys, left the house without looking at the gate, got into her car, and started the engine with trembling hands. In the rearview mirror, she saw her own face, pale, devastated, almost unrecognizable. On the way, she didn't turn on the radio, didn't look at her cell phone, just drove. The silence inside the car was unbearable, so she started talking to herself, as if her daughter were sitting next to her. Maybe it's not you, right, daughter? It was a mistake. There are so many people in Los Angeles. It must be someone else. Someone took your papers. It can't be you. The tears wouldn't stop flowing. She wiped them away with her sleeve without feeling it. Please, God, let me be wrong this time. Let me get there and see that it's not her. I promise to do everything right afterwards. I promise. And there, in the middle of traffic, with the lights of Los Angeles beginning to come on, Isabel Montoya was no longer the businesswoman, the boss, the millionaire. She was just a mother, going to see perhaps what she feared most, her daughter's body. Isabel parked in front of the gray, windowless building with a discreet sign that read, Medical Examiner's Office. Just seeing it made her throat tighten. The world seemed to slow down. She turned off the car, but didn't get out right away. She stayed there, gripping the steering wheel, her hands sweaty, her chest tight, her mouth dry. She took a deep breath and opened the door. The noise of the street disappeared as soon as she entered the building. Everything inside was cold. The walls, the floor, the air, a silence that weighed heavily on her shoulders. She walked to the reception desk. There was no one there. She rang the bell. A few seconds later, a door opened next to her. Mrs. Montoya? Asked a man in a white coat with a clipboard in his hand. She just nodded. She was pale. Her eyes were red, her soul outside her body. Come with me, please. he said without looking directly at her, as if I didn't want to see the pain. Isabel walked behind him down a narrow hallway. Each step echoed on the floor. The lights were cold, the metal lockers, the strong smell of cleaner. Everything felt distant, like in a nightmare. The doctor stopped in front of a steel door. He took a deep breath. "Ma'am, this is just a normal procedure. We need to confirm her identity. I know it's not easy, but—" She interrupted him with a gesture. She didn't want explanations, she just wanted to get it over with, or wake up. The doctor pushed the door open. The sound was sharp, metallic. It echoed through the room. Isabel felt a tug in her stomach, a chill down her spine. She had to pause for a second before entering. She put her hand on the wall, felt the pressure in her chest. The place was small, the walls white, the ceiling with fluorescent lights. In the center of the room, a metal table. On top of it, a body covered with a white sheet. She took a step and almost vomited. The smell was cold, chemical, but underneath there was something else. Something that only those who have been close to death recognize. The doctor stood by her side, said nothing, just waited. Isabel put her hand to her mouth, breathed through her nose, slowly, almost fainting. Then she stood there in front of the white sheet. Time froze, and inside her a scream formed, ready to burst out. The body was there, motionless, lying on the metal table, covered with a white sheet. The fabric rose slightly with the air conditioning, almost imperceptibly, and that was all. Silence, cold, and a pain that was already beginning to invade her whole body, although she was still not sure. The doctor looked at Isabel as if asking for permission, although he said nothing. She didn't answer. She just nodded very slowly and put her hand to her chest. Then he took the edge of the sheet and pulled it carefully. First the face. Isabel froze. Everyone froze. The pale of her pale face, the purple dry lips, and the eyelashes, those fine, long eyelashes that she herself used to comb when Renata was a child, before going to school. She always said they looked like an angel's. She saw and couldn't believe it. It couldn't be. It couldn't be, but it was. The scream came out dry, torn, as if her throat were breaking. She took 2 steps forward and threw herself on the body. "My girl, my love, no, please." Her voice came from a place even she didn't know. She pressed her daughter's face against her chest, kissed her hair, hugged her shoulders, and shook her gently, as if trying to wake someone from a deep sleep. "Wake up, please. It's me. Mommy's here. Don't do this to me, please." The doctor looked down. 2 nurses entered, but they didn't move. It was a moment no one wanted to touch. A moment of pure, unfiltered pain. The pain of a mother seeing something no heart can bear. Isabel was crying. It wasn't normal crying. It was a desperate sound, a lament that came from the soul. She moaned between words, hugging the body tightly, as if she could bring it back to life with love alone. "Forgive me, my love. Forgive me for not being there, for not seeing, for everything." Tears wet her daughter's face. The mother's chest shook as if it were about to explode. It was as if in that embrace she were trying to put the pieces of her own heart back together. Isabel stood next to the metal table with her daughter's body in her arms, as if it were possible to warm her with her own body. Her forehead pressed against Renata's, her eyes closed, her face wet with tears, trembling all over. Her arms hugged tightly, as if love were a blanket capable of bringing her back, as if time could be turned back a little, just enough to prevent it, to protect, to save. Between sobs, her voice began to come out low, stuck, cut off. "Forgive me, my love. Forgive me. I'm here now. Everything is going to be okay." Her voice was like that of someone trying to convince herself. She stroked her hair, untangled a knot, tucked a strand behind her ear, small gestures, the same ones she used to make when Renata was a child, and woke up from a nightmare. "Please don't leave me, daughter. Not now. That's it." Isabel pressed her cheek against her daughter's chest as she used to do when she was a baby. She tried to hear what no longer had any sound. She looked for a sign, a sigh, a whisper, anything. "Forgive me for not seeing, for being far away, for not listening, for not understanding your silences." She kissed her cold forehead with such affection, with such pain, that it seemed as if she wanted to leave all the love in the world, compressed into a single touch. It hurt so much, my girl. So much you don't know how much. And she cried. She cried while talking. She cried while asking. She cried as if crying could prevent the end. I love you. I love you so much. Please, daughter, come back. The room remained silent. But there, at that moment, a mother's love filled everything, every corner, every space. I'm here now. You're not alone anymore. I swear you're not alone. She caressed her face as if she were a porcelain doll, gently, carefully. Don't leave me, my love. Don't leave me. And deep down in her soul, a part of her was dying with her. Because for a mother, the worst thing is not losing. The worst thing is not having been able to protect. Isabel stayed there, hugging her daughter's body for minutes that seemed like hours. Time stood still. There was no life outside that cold room, just her pain, and that silence that seemed to scream louder than anything else. With trembling hands, she tried to adjust the sheet. She wanted to cover her daughter's shoulders better, to protect her from the cold, as she did when Renata fell asleep on the couch watching cartoons. She pulled the fabric slowly, carefully, as if she could still hurt her, and that's when she saw it. The right hand, which was partially uncovered, rested with all fingers loose except one, the little finger. The little finger was bent slightly, almost imperceptibly, but it was there, a detail that no one else would notice, only her. She knew that gesture. It was a tick. Renata had done that since she was little, whenever she fell into a deep sleep. It was automatic, a slight curve, as if the finger fell asleep before the rest of the body. Isabel froze. The world seemed to shrink around her. The air disappeared. Her eyes widened. She stood motionless, without blinking. Isabel whispered as if afraid of her own voice. She stared at the hand. The finger didn't move, but it was bent as if it were alive, as if it were still there. Renata, my love, she repeated more softly, her voice breaking, her wet eyes filling with hope and terror. At the same time, her breathing quickened. Her heart was beating wildly. She didn't know if she was going crazy or if she was witnessing a miracle. But that little curve in the finger belonged to her daughter, and only her. Isabel stood there paralyzed, the world on pause, her mind saying one thing, her heart screaming another. Please, daughter, tell me yes. Tell me you're here. And in that instant, in that second when everything stopped, a new pain was born inside her. The pain of doubt, the pain of someone who perhaps still has hope. Carefully, fearfully, lovingly, she reached out and touched Renata's hand. The skin was not as cold as it should have been. It was not that dead cold you would expect in a place like that. It was cold, but there was something different. A slight warmth, a remnant of life. Isabel stood still. Then she slowly ran her finger over the back of her daughter's hand, squeezed lightly, waited, her heart beating so hard it felt like a drum inside her chest. It was then that she felt it. A vibration so small it could have gone unnoticed, but she felt it. It wasn't a spasm. It was like a faint pulse, a hidden signal from the inside out, a plea, a call. Isabel held her breath, her eyes filling with tears again. She was no longer crying from pain. She was crying from shock, from hope, from fear, from everything at once. She stared at her daughter's face, motionless. Her eyelashes didn't move. Her lips were still purple, but something wasn't right. She looked again at her hand, then her arms, her neck, and then the sheets. That's when she noticed that in the middle of the sheet, just below her belly button, there was a subtle, small bump, but it hadn't been there before. A soft, rounded curve. It wasn't swelling. It wasn't random. It was an almost invisible little belly. But then Isabel opened her eyes wide, brought her hand to that spot, touched it gently, her palm trembling, and stayed there feeling it. And what was almost nothing suddenly seemed like everything, a certainty, a call from life. No, it can't be, she whispered, her voice breaking. She froze, the words stuck in her throat. What she was seeing, she couldn't ignore it. She couldn't pretend. It couldn't be a coincidence. Her daughter might still be alive, and she might not be alone. It couldn't be her imagination. It couldn't be madness. She jumped up. "Help!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the cold air in the room. Someone, please, doctor. Nurses. Someone hear me. The same doctor who had shown her the body was startled. Mrs. Montoya, what happened? She pointed at the table, her eyes wide, breathing heavily. She's not dead. Her skin isn't cold. Her finger is moving. There's something in her belly. My daughter is alive. The doctor exchanged glances with a nurse who was coming in behind him. Isabel noticed the doubt, the look of uncertainty. No, don't look at me like that. Check her now. They approached slowly. The nurse touched Renata's arm, then her neck, and paused. The doctor brought a device and passed it over her chest. They remained silent for a few seconds. That seemed like an eternity. Isabel paced back and forth. Her hands were on her face. Her heart was beating fast. Come on, what's going on? The doctor frowned, swallowed, and shook his head. Isabel shouted, I'm sure. My daughter is alive. She approached again. She took her daughter's hand. I've got you, my love. Mommy's here. No one else is going to touch you. But the others just stood there, looking on sadly. What are you waiting for? Take her now. To the emergency room. The doctor called for backup. 2 more people came in. The nurse hugged Isabel, telling her to calm down, that she was having a crisis due to the trauma. Isabel wouldn't let go of her daughter, screaming with all the strength of the love she felt. Isabel could only repeat one thing. Hang on, my love. Hang on, please, hang on. Chaos already reigned in the hallway of the medical examiner's office. Screams, running footsteps, voices crossing in the air. Isabel stood next to the stretcher, her eyes fixed on her daughter's face. The doctors in their white coats still didn't seem to understand what they were seeing. Everything was happening quickly and slowly at the same time, like a damaged film. It was then that an older doctor appeared in the middle of the commotion. He had gray hair, a steady gaze, and a slightly wrinkled coat, but he carried himself like someone who had seen many things. What's going on here? He asked, looking at the others with authority. Doctor, the patient was pronounced dead this morning, but the lady says she's her daughter, and she's alive, replied one of the nurses breathlessly. He approached the stretcher, put his bag on the floor, and took out his equipment quickly but carefully. Isabel stood by, almost without blinking, her hands clasped together, trembling. He placed the sensors on Renata's chest, took her pulse with 2 fingers, took out a small flashlight, and carefully opened one of her eyelids. Bring me the monitor now. They connected it. Silence. His eyes were fixed on the screen, and then the line that seemed dead gave a little jump. Beep. The doctor opened his eyes, his hand trembling slightly. He looked again. He confirmed it. Heartbeat detected. Isabel brought her hands to her face. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She's alive. The doctor took her pulse again. Weak pulse present, but it's there. He turned to the others firmly. To the emergency room now. This is a case of catalepsy. It appears to have been caused by some substance. She was mistakenly declared dead. No one doubted anymore. The stretcher began to move quickly. Isabel ran alongside, holding her daughter's fingers with all the care in the world. I'm here, my love. I've got you. I won't let you go. They went straight to the hospital emergency room. New equipment, machines, monitors, IVs, medicines, oxygen masks. Orders were given loudly. Catalepsy, a rare condition. The body becomes paralyzed. Vital signs are barely detectable. A state between life and death. And in Renata's case, it was caused by drugs. Someone had brought her to that point, but she was still there. She was still there. And Isabel, standing next to the stretcher, wearing a nurse's gown over her shoulders, with red eyes and an open heart, knew only one thing. She came back. She came back for me. Isabel didn't move from the door of the emergency room for a second. The hours passed as if they were an eternity. Every minute she looked at the clock, hanging on the cold white wall, as if time were playing with her. She didn't have the strength to sit down, so I didn't want to eat. She didn't want water. She just waited standing up, her hands clasped, her eyes fixed on the door, as if guarding the entrance to her own heart. Inside, she prayed without pretty words, without cliches. It was a raw, sweaty, desperate prayer. Please, God, please let me have her. I'll do everything differently, everything, until the door slowly opened. A young doctor came out with a board in his hands. She jumped up. How is my daughter? Is she alive? He took a deep breath. He smiled a little, that reserved, respectful smile, but with hope. "Yes, ma'am, she's alive, stable." Isabel knelt on the floor. Tears poured out like heavy rain. A sob came from the back of her throat. A clean, relieved, sweaty cry. She doubled over and hugged herself as if trying to hold her heart in place, which wanted to leap out of her chest. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." The doctor crouched down beside her and put his hand on her shoulder. "Is there anything else? Anything you should know?" She lifted her face, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. "What else?" He hesitated for a second, then opened the chart and showed her a recent test. "Your daughter is pregnant. 4 months." Isabel blinked, not understanding at first. Time stood still again. "What? How?" The ultrasound was clear. "The baby is fine. The heartbeat is strong. It's a girl." She put her hand to her mouth. Her whole body was shaking. She was crying and smiling at the same time, an impossible mixture of feelings, like an explosion of emotions, as if life after nearly dying had been reborn in 2 ways. Renata was alive, and she was not alone. Isabel got up with difficulty, her eyes shining with tears, her chest full of a love that no longer fit inside her. "A girl," she repeated, as if talking to God. "A little girl. Thank you, thank you." And in that moment, she knew nothing would be the same as before. And even though it hurt, she was ready, because now there were 2 lives to protect. The morning light streamed softly through the bedroom window. The sound of the monitor marked a slow but steady rhythm. The smell of the hospital was strong. But at that moment, Isabel felt nothing but her daughter's hand in hers. She didn't sleep all night. She sat there next to the bed, watching Renata's every breath. Her face was still pale, her lips cracked, but her eyelashes were moving again. And then, slowly, her eyes opened. Renata blinked once, twice. She tried to focus her eyes. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. At first, she slowly turned her head and looked. "Mom," she whispered in a weak voice, almost inaudible. Isabel jumped up, but stopped herself. She approached calmly, carefully, holding back her tears. "I'm here, my love. Mommy's here." Renata tried to raise her hand, but couldn't. Only her eyes spoke, and they said a lot, full of pain, fear, and anguish hidden in her soul. "Mommy," she said again with tears falling. "They tried. They drugged me. I didn't want to." The words came out broken. She was trembling, her face full of pain and shame. Isabel leaned over the bed and hugged her with all the care in the world. Their 2 hearts beat against each other. "It's over, sweetie. It's over. I'm here." She held her head against her shoulder, just like when she was a little girl and woke up from a nightmare. "You're not alone anymore." Renata cried softly, and Isabel cried with her. But it was a different kind of crying now. A crying of reunion, of forgiveness, of being alive. There, in that silent embrace, mother and daughter found themselves broken again. Yes, but alive and together. The following days were a whirlwind of tests, questions, and silence. Renata, still weak, didn't talk much, but little by little, between a sleepless night and an afternoon of silent crying, Isabel pieced together the puzzle. Her daughter would sometimes stare at the ceiling as if trying to understand her own past. Other times, she would just close her eyes and take a deep breath as if to stop the crying in her chest. It was one morning when a social worker entered the room that the truth began to take shape. "Renata, we need to understand what happened. Do you remember anything from that night?" Renata hesitated and looked at her mother. Isabel squeezed her hand affectionately. "I'm here, my love. Tell me without fear." She took a deep breath. Then, with her eyes downcast, she began to speak. She went to a party at the home of some acquaintances. People with money, people who gamble with everything. There was music, alcohol, strange things. I didn't want to drink much because of the pregnancy. I just wanted to distract myself, but they offered me something. I said no, but then I don't remember very well. Isabel felt her blood run cold, but she didn't interrupt her. I remember feeling strange, my body heavy, my head spinning. I tried to leave and then, I don't know, just darkness, cold, and I woke up for a moment. I was on a sofa. I heard laughter, drunk people, and then nothing. Tears began to fall down her face. They left me lying there, Mom, like trash. I didn't even know where I was. No one helped me. Isabel was already crying silently. Her fingers caressed her daughters delicately, as if cleaning the wounds inside. "You're not trash, my love. You never were. This was never your fault," the social worker wrote silently. But the atmosphere in that room was one of deep pain, as if part of the truth was being torn out with tweezers. Renata closed her eyes, trembling. "I thought I was going to die alone and pregnant." Isabel hugged her tightly, as if to say, "Never again." And there, amid bitter truths and memories that hurt too much, mother and daughter understood that the struggle was just beginning. But now they were on the same side. Isabel knew she needed to know more. The pain was already unbearable, but the doubt hurt even more. Si didn't want to force Renata, I didn't want to pressure her, but she also couldn't ignore what her daughter was carrying inside. Something had happened. Something that needed a name, a face, a consequence. Those were days of calm conversations, slow gestures, silent hugs. Isabel waited patiently and lovingly for her daughter, until one night, with the dim light of the nightstand and the sound of the monitor setting the rhythm in the room, Renata spoke. "Mom, do you remember Matteo?" Isabel turned slowly. Her voice came out weak, as if each word weighed heavily. "Matteo Davila, the son of the Davilas, the owners of Pharmalux." Isabel knew him. The surname was famous. It was power. It was money. They appeared on magazine covers, inaugurated hospitals, invested in research, and also in luxurious parties, always surrounded by young people, cameras, and fake smiles. Renata took a deep breath. "It was months ago, at a party in the valley. We drank. He was very drunk. I wasn't thinking either. I had no idea." Her eyes were already filling with tears. "He forced you?" Renata shook her head. "No, he didn't force me, but I wasn't well. I wasn't fully conscious. It wasn't violent, but it wasn't careful or loving either. It was as if I were nothing, and then he ignored me, as if I didn't exist." Isabel felt a pain she couldn't explain. It wasn't just anger. It was something deeper, a void, a bitter taste rising in her throat, the kind of thing that breaks you inside. "And when I found out I was pregnant, I tried to find him, but he blocked me from everything. He never answered me again. The name Davila was now not just a surname, it was a threat, a symbol of everything that is untouchable, of everything that believes it can walk all over others and get away with it." Isabel closed her eyes. She breathed slowly and took her daughter's hand. "We're not going to stay silent. Do you hear me?" Renata just looked at her, frightened. "He has a name, he has a face, and he's going to listen, and he's going to know. Not for revenge, but because you deserve justice. Because no one has the right to disappear after doing that. No one." At that moment, mother and daughter were no longer united only by pain. They were now connected by something greater, the truth. And Isabel knew she wouldn't stop until that truth hurt those it needed to hurt. Isabel decided she couldn't wait any longer. She called an old acquaintance and got an invitation to a luxurious charity event, the kind filled with expensive champagne, red carpets, and fake smiles. It was the kind of place where Matteo Davila loved to be seen, dressed in discreet elegance, but with eyes full of fury and truth. Isabel entered the room with firm steps. She ignored the flashes, the curious glances, the whispers. She didn't come to smile. Matteo was surrounded by people. He laughed loudly, glass in hand, as if the world were his. When he saw Isabel approaching, he raised an eyebrow contemptuously. "Mrs. Montoya, what a surprise!" She stood right in front of him. The background music was playing softly, but the silence around them was immediate. People stopped talking. Security approached. "Don't you dare," she said in a low but firm voice. "Not one step." Matteo feigned a smile. "What's going on, Isabel? Did you come to ask for a donation?" Then she spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "You abused my daughter. She was drugged, and now she's pregnant and almost died." Matteo didn't respond immediately. The room was in shock, everyone waiting for his reaction. He let out a short, ironic laugh. "Ma'am, I think you're confused. Your daughter wanted to party. Everyone knows what those girls are like." She took a step forward. "She was unconscious, Matteo. You know that, and you disappeared, and now you're pretending nothing happened." He smiled again, but this time his eyes turned hard. "You're playing with important people, Mrs. Montoya. Be careful on the steps on your way out." That sentence cut through the air, but Isabel didn't back down. "I'm not afraid of the steps, Mateo. Do you know why? Because I went down to hell for my daughter, and you're going to fall all by yourself." And the room fell completely silent. Mateo turned around, trying to maintain his composure, but his nervousness was visible. Isabel stood there with her head held high. She knew that at that moment, without shouting, she had won the first battle, and Mateo had shown who he really was. It was a Wednesday morning. Isabel was on the hospital terrace drinking bitter coffee when the doorman appeared with a brown envelope with no return address. It was simple, with no markings, no name, just the address written by hand in cold letters. She thanked him and returned to her daughter's room, the envelope in her hands as if it were a stone. She waited for Renata to fall asleep again and sat alone in the corner armchair. She opened it carefully. Inside were 5 printed photos. The first showed Isabel pushing her daughter's stretcher, sweating, desperate. The second showed Renata unconscious, being lifted into the ambulance. The third showed the two of them holding hands in the hospital. The other 2 showed Isabel entering the hospital in a state of shock. Behind the last photo was a note written in pen. "Stop digging. Some things are better left buried." Isabel froze, clutching the paper in her fingers, her stomach churning. A chill ran down her spine. She felt fear, but she also felt anger, and most of all, she felt love. She looked at the bed where her daughter slept, still fragile, with tubes, monitors, bandages, her skin pale, but alive. She got up, put the photos back in the envelope, took a deep breath, and decided she wasn't going to stop. That same afternoon, she hired a private investigator, a discreet, trustworthy man with a clean past and courage in his eyes. She gave him everything: the photos, the note, the hospital records, the names Renata had heard, everything that could help. She kept copies of everything in a private safe. She also put the medical tests, old messages saved from her daughter's cell phone, and hospital papers showing how they had declared her dead without doing enough tests. Isabel knew what she was doing. She knew who she was messing with, but her fear was never greater than the love she felt for her daughter. And inside her, a certainty grew. If anyone thought they could scare a mother who had seen her daughter almost die, they had chosen the wrong person. The nights in the hospital were long. The lights were never completely turned off. The silence was always broken by a beep, a footstep, a sigh. But that night, what broke the silence was crying. Renata was tossing and turning in bed, with her face clenched. Her chest rose and fell heavily, her eyes closed, but tears fell. She was dreaming. No, it wasn't a dream. It was a memory. "No, no, please," she murmured, trapped in a nightmare that returned every morning. Isabel, who was sleeping on the couch next to her, woke up with a start, went to the bed, and took her daughter's hand. "I'm here, my love. I'm with you." Renata moved a little until she suddenly opened her eyes, frightened, lost, her eyes wet. Mom, he made fun of me. No one helped me. No one." Isabel sat on the edge of the bed. She gently ran her fingers through her hair, slowly smoothing out the strands stuck together with sweat. "Shh, it's over, sweetie. It's over, my love." Renata was breathing heavily. Her gaze was lost on the ceiling, as if she were trying to escape from something. Isabel leaned over, hugged her daughter's face to her chest, and began to sing very softly. It was the same song she sang when Renata was a baby and afraid of the dark. "Go to sleep, my girl. Mommy is here. There are no monsters, no screams, just me here with you." Her voice was soft, firm, with a sweetness that only a mother knows. And Renata began to calm down. Her body gradually relaxed. Her crying turned into sighing. The tears stopped. "Go to sleep, my girls. The pain will go away. It's going away. Mommy will protect you. Mommy won't leave." Isabel kissed her forehead tenderly. She stayed there with her forehead touching her daughter's, like two hearts beating in unison again. And that night, in that cold hospital room, the lullaby became a shield, an embrace, a promise. Nothing and no one would ever hurt Renata again, ever again. The examination room was small, with soft lighting and a silence that respected the importance of the moment. Isabel sat next to the stretcher, holding Renata's hand as she stared at the ceiling. Neither of them said anything. The air was filled with everything they had been through, but also with everything that could come. The doctor entered calmly, set up the machine, and put the cold gel on Renata's belly. She trembled a little, but did not let go of her mother's hand. Isabel squeezed it back, tightly. Present. The screen began to light up with blurry shapes, dots, shadows, until suddenly the sound filled the room. Thump, 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 thump. The heart beating, strong, rhythmic, alive. Isabel brought her other hand to her mouth. Her eyes filled instantly. Tears came silently. Without warning, they just came. A tiny profile appeared on the screen. A little head, a little torso, little arms, and then a little leg moved as if to say, "Here I am." Isabel couldn't speak. She just stared. An enormous love, unknown until that moment, began to grow inside her. A love that did not come from logic, but from the soul, fierce, pure instinct, like a lioness awakening to care for her cub. She turned slowly and looked at her daughter. Renata's eyes were shining, her cheeks wet. Isabel squeezed her hand even tighter. "We're going to take care of this little one, the two of us together. Nothing will happen to her, my love. Nothing." Renata turned and smiled, a shy smile, tinged with pain, but real. It was the first since everything that had happened. A smile from someone who, in the midst of so much pain, can feel a new beginning. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered. "Thank you for never letting go of me." Isabel rested her forehead against her daughter's, and together they looked at the screen. There was hope, not only for a new life, but for a new beginning. Isabel spent many nights awake, staring at the ceiling. Her body was tired, but her mind was racing. The pain she carried could no longer fit inside her alone. It was like a fire that had to come out somehow, not to destroy, but to light the way for others. It was in one of those early mornings, listening to Renata's peaceful breathing as she slept, that she made her decision. She was going to speak out, not about names or faces, but about the truth. She grabbed her cell phone and wrote a short email to a respected journalist, explaining that she wanted to give an interview without revealing her identity, but telling everything her daughter had been through. Minutes later, she received a reply. When and where would she like? The interview was published 2 days later. Isabel's image was blurred, her voice slightly altered, but the emotion could not be hidden. She told of the half-open gate, the destroyed room, the night in the morgue, the discovery of the baby. She spoke of the fear, the pain, the silent cry of a young woman left behind at a party for the rich. She spoke of the silence of those who knew and turned their faces away. In the days that followed, her inbox exploded. Thousands of emails, mothers, aunts, grandmothers, young women, all with similar stories. Some had never told anyone, others had been silenced. People from all over the country were asking for help, asking for a voice. The pain was not theirs alone. It was shared by many people, and now it had a name. It was then that Isabel understood what she had to do. She sold part of one of her hotels and used the money to create something that could go beyond her own suffering. The organization Segunda Vida was born, a safe place, a space with psychologists, social workers, legal support, and above all, listening, without judgment, without bureaucracy. A refuge for those who had suffered abuse, drugs, and silent violence in the most beautiful and cruelest of places. Each room had a flower in the corner. Each door had a phrase written in simple letters. "You are not alone." And there, amid so much shared pain, Isabel found her mission, because she knew she couldn't change the past, but she could change the future of many people, and she would do so with all the strength she still had left in her chest. It was a typical afternoon at the Foundation Center. Isabel went from room to room talking to the team, listening to stories, holding hands. That place breathed pain and new beginnings, all at the same time. More than 100 women had already passed through there, each with a face, with trauma, with a struggle. She was sitting in the kitchen drinking iced tea when a nurse came in with a shy smile. In her hand, she held a carefully folded piece of paper. "Ms. Isabel, a little girl left this at the door." She didn't say her name. She just smiled and ran off. Isabel took the paper and opened it slowly. It was a drawing made with simple colored pencils, scribbled with force, as children do. In the picture, a woman in a white dress with a round belly. Next to her, a little girl holding her hand. Both were smiling, even though they had no mouths drawn on them. It was the shape of the lines that conveyed the gesture. There was joy there. There was life. On the back was a sentence written in small, slightly crooked letters. "Thank you for saving your daughter. Now you save many more." Isabel put her hand to her mouth. Her heart sank instantly. This was not just a piece of paper. It was a mirror, an echo of what she had become, of what her pain had generated in the world. She stood there, looking at the drawing as if it were gold. She folded it with all the care in the world and put it in her bag, close to her chest. Later, when she got home, she opened a safe hidden at the back of the closet, took everything out, and made space for it. There were Renata's first tests, the ultrasound photo, the copy of the anonymous message, and now she kept that drawing as one keeps a piece of one's soul. And for a moment she closed her eyes because she understood once again that even when the world seems to be falling apart, if love becomes action, it saves and transforms, and she would never let that drawing be erased. Months later, the hospital hallway felt longer that day. Isabel paced back and forth, her hands sweaty and her heart racing. On the other side of the door, Renata was screaming. She screamed as if she were going through a hurricane. With each moan, Isabel felt her body tremble. When they called her name, she ran in. Renata was pale, her hair stuck to her forehead, and her breathing was ragged. But when she saw her mother, she reached out her hand. "Mom," she said, her voice broken with pain. Isabel ran to her, held her tightly, and looked into her daughter's eyes. "I'm here, my love, and I'm not going to let go." The next few minutes felt like an eternity. The pain came in waves. Renata screamed, cried, and squeezed her mother's hand so hard that it hurt. But Isabel didn't move. She just said through her tears, "Breathe, my love. It's almost over. You can do this. You are stronger than all of this." Until the moment came, a loud, clear cry, a new sound in the world. The baby was born. The room was filled with respectful silence, and then the little one's first cry broke the air. Alive, whole, strong, Renata couldn't stop crying. Tears ran down her sweaty face, and between sobs, she looked at her mother and said, "Her name will be Esperanza." Isabel burst into tears. She cried as she hadn't cried in a long time, but it was a different kind of crying, one of relief, of joy, of 1,000 pains, leaving with that sound of life. She approached her granddaughter, who was still wrapped in a white towel. She kissed her little forehead with so much love that it seemed like a pact. "Welcome, my love. Welcome to this family." A nurse said something about the DNA test, if they wanted to follow protocol. Isabel looked at her firmly. "No, we don't need that. I don't want anything from those bad people, those rotten people related to my daughter. This girl is ours. She is good. She is love. That's all that matters." And there, hand in hand, mother and daughter received the miracle that was born after the pain, the life that conquered fear, the hope that now had a name. The room was simple, but full of love. Light curtains moved with the gentle morning breeze. Teddy bears were everywhere. A colorful mobile spun slowly above the crib, and a rocking chair stood in the corner where Isabel now sat, with Hope asleep in her arms. The baby breathed slowly, with that soft sound that only newborns have, her little face calm, her eyelashes as thin as her mother's. Isabel looked at her as if she could see the past, the present, and the future there. At the same time, she began to sing softly, "Go to sleep, my little girl. Mommy is here." It was the same song, the same one that lulled Renata to sleep so many nights, the same one she sang months ago through tears, trying to hold her daughter with her voice, with her touch, with her love. Now she sang it again, but with a different energy. It was soft, but with great strength. A song promising to stay by the crib. Hanging on the wall was a framed photo. Renata smiling, her hair loose, her face calm. The light came in from the side, revealing the almost faded scar near her chin. the same one she had had since childhood. Isabel looked at the photo, and her eyes filled with tears. "We did it, my daughter," she whispered, her voice breaking. "How many lives are given up for lost, when all they need is someone to look deeper? In this story, what would you do if you were Isabel? If you were Renata, could you trust again? Write your comments. I read every one. For more real-life dramas like this, subscribe and turn on notifications, and let's meet in the video currently on screen.